Hi everybody, my name is Bookie and I'm here for the Good Eve channel. How you all doing today? Today we're going to be discussing the issue of financial superheroes. Are you a financial superhero? If you are, it may be time for you to retire. You save everybody, you help everybody until there's nothing almost left for yourself. Are you a financial superhero? Like I said, stay tuned because it may be time for you to retire. Hi everyone, welcome to Good Eve channel. And today we're going to be discussing the issue of some of our favorite people. You know, that person that always whips out their wallet and is ready to pay, is ready to help. You're in a bind. Who do you call? That financial superhero. Or perhaps you are the financial superhero. Maybe you're the person that comes to the rescue of everybody when they need it. Someone needs to pay their tuition, you're right there. Someone is short on their house rent, it's you. Someone needs to pay for the grocery bills. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? There you are. If you are this person who's this financial superhero, who's always there to save the day, I may suggest it might be just about time you reconsider your options and reconsider your actions. It may be time for you to retire. But let's take a step back. First, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and please comment down below. It'll help me with the algorithm, and I think this information might be useful for you or someone else that you know. Now, let's get back to the point. Who is a financial superhero? Now it's time for me to give you a formal Good Eve definition. A financial superhero, in my opinion, is an individual who often comes to the financial rescue of family members, friends, colleagues, staff, and the community perhaps at large, as if all these individuals and entities and beings are damsels in distress in need of saving. They eventually perform these financial acts at great personal financial risk to themselves and to their nuclear, i.e., their immediate family. They have been conditioned to believe, trained over the years to save the day no matter what, no matter the cost to themselves. After all, they're financial superheroes. They can always make it back and they can always get back on top. So these guys sound noble. If you're doing this, it sounds like it's a very noble thing for you to do. So why am I here saying that it might be time for you to retire? Well, first thing you need to think about is, remember I said financial superheroes typically do this at great financial cost to themselves and risk themselves. If it's not costing you anything, if it's not risking you anything, then it's fine. You should go ahead. If you're not spending more than 10% of your total income in these rescues, in these interventions, in being the superhero wearing the cape in your family, hey, go right ahead. But if you're finding you're going into debt, you're finding that you're extending yourself, you're spending almost everything you have, you can't predict your monthly spending, you can never stick to a budget because everyone is coming to you with unpredictable, unmeasurable, and uncontrollable costs, it might be time for you to retire from being a superhero. So the first thing is your financial security typically is in shambles. And you'll know, even though you put up this facade and you put forward this good face and a good foot forward, you know that it's taking its toll on you financially. You can't keep up. You'll find yourself in a situation where you pretend to have less than you do have access to because you know that everyone is going to come to you to bail them out. It might be time for you to step down and retire your cape. The second point I have for you is you're only weakening those you're helping. If your entire community only come to you, your friends all come to you, your family, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your aunties, your second coven twice removed, everyone comes to you first, second, or third, I can assure you that you're not helping them. There's a saying that it's better to teach a man to fish than just simply giving him a fish. Now, if you're dealing with an orphaned child who's underage and is incapable of working for themselves, or even someone who's very elderly and is also ill and incapable of working for themselves, I mean, it's a noble thing to contribute towards those costs where you can. But you're only weakening them if you don't also make sure that able-bodied dependents, imaginary or not, actual or real, you don't learn to empower them. You can help them in other ways, helping them with education, mentoring them, talking to them, giving them good counsel, praying for them. I mean, it goes along, giving them a pep talk, connecting them with a source where they can learn to fish for themselves or get a job of their own or start a business or run it well. These are all the things that can help people other than just opening up your wallet, whipping out your checkbook and giving them checks, writing these things out. It just creates this dependency that in reality, in many cases, unless you're extremely wealthy, hey, it's just not sustainable. The third point I wanted to talk about is even if you feel you have the broad shoulders to carry this, man or woman, what about your children? What sacrifices are you making them bear because of this lifestyle choice? What about your wife or your husband? How is this impacting them? And you're potentially putting them in financial peril. There's a season to save, there's a season to invest, there's a season to build your assets, there's a season to build your war chest. But if you're spending all that time being this financial superhero and saving people who wouldn't, if you were not there, would probably find another financial superhero to latch on, or might even find a solution and become their own heroes, guess what? You're putting your family potentially in peril down the road. Tomorrow is not guaranteed, and it's daunting as it is to hear it and as sobering as it is to hear it. We could pass away at any moment. What kind of legacy are you really leaving behind for your children? Are you setting them up? Are you setting your wife, your husband up to also be dependent on financial superheroes? These are some of the things you need to begin to think about, because you may be disappointed to discover there will be no hero coming to rescue your children or your spouse, your wife, or your husband. The fourth point I'd like to share is that it's terrible for your mental health. Just the pressure, the strain, the arguments it causes, the bickering, the posturing, the politicking that constantly surrounds you and the people who you provide this endless aid to in such large quantities that it's affecting your mental health. Worrying about that next promotion that you may not even really want. I like what I do. I like the money I'm earning, but you know what? I need to earn more. I need to get more. I need that more and more and more, because you know that you're not just looking after your spouse and your family. You're looking after other people who may decide to have 5 children. You only have 2, but they've decided to have 5. And it's now your responsibility to educate 7 children. I mean, so these are some of the things you need to begin to understand. The mental strain. I mean, is it a wonder that so many people eventually end up with high blood pressure, diabetes, so many stress-related illnesses? Part of it is putting yourself under this superhuman pressure, constantly thinking that you can handle it. There's no need for you to handle it. Share the burden. Set some of it down so that you can also survive. Remember, even when you get in a plane, the first instruction they tell you is if they're in case of an emergency and the oxygen masks fall down, you should put your mask on first before you even help your child. Talk less of damsels and folks in distress, dudes in distress. Make sure that you secured your own mental health, your own families is secure. And then from that, I suggest a figure of 10%. You can help. Now, I'd like to end this video on a sobering thought. Yes, it's funny and probably kind of humorous to liken coming to the rescue financially to being a financial superhero, but there are real world consequences for continuing upon this path. I remember a few years ago, there was a good friend of mine who worked in a company, And there was a lady, because of the nature of this issue, obviously I'm not even going to tell you what type of company it was, who worked in their accounting department. She was lovely, well loved by all. Wonderful young woman who was wonderful. She was in her mid to late 30s, had never been married, had never even had a serious boyfriend. And the word around the water cooler was every single guy that kind of stepped to her and was kind of trying to be serious and enter into a long-term relationship, her family scared away. And why? Well, she came from a very, humble background where she was fortunate to break out. And so she was considered in her family to be the financial superstar. But she decided to take it a step further and make herself the financial superhero. So when anyone's sick, whenever anyone needs to pay rent, when everyone has school fees to be paid, when there's any kind of financial obligation, she would be there, right to the rescue, dun, 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 ready to step in and pay. And at first she could handle it. But the demands of everyone that she was supporting kept growing exponentially. I remember she lived on her own, and within a short order, all her siblings were living with her. Of course, her parents were living with her. Her aunts and uncles were living with her. And they were all having children in this 3-bedroom apartment. I mean, she was a single woman. She could have done with a 1-bedroom apartment. But she had to get a bigger home and pay more rent and pay, power bills and water bills and all sorts of bills just to feed all these people. But, she was a family person and she loved them and she loved having the support around her and the community. And I remember my friend told me that she was chatting with her one day, and every time there was an annual review of salary, she was eagerly looking forward to it because she was like, oh, I have so many responsibilities. I just wonder how much it will be, how it will help, how I'll be able to help so many other people. And while this was noble, eventually she ended up in prison. And how did it happen? Well, one day there was a particularly terrible illness, we hear, and it was on a Friday. And she handled cash for the company, which she was supposed to remit to the bank. Well, there was this crisis. They called her on a Friday. And so instead of paying in some money to the bank, she kept some back, took it home, and used it to settle this medical issue. While her family was supposed to scramble around, or she was going to scramble around, maybe borrow it from someone else, and pay it back. And guess what? She did. She borrowed this money, even though it was unethical and wrong, and she was able to put the money back. But guess what? Nobody in the company noticed. No one was aware. No one was the wiser. So guess what? She did it again and again and again. And eventually it began to get harder for her to put the money back. And when her family asked, how did you get all this money on such short notice? She told them. And so they encouraged her to, in essence, continuously steal from the company in which she was employed. Remember, this was a breakthrough for the entire family. Because of her, a lot of her cousins, her brothers were able to attend university and start the process. She was helping so many people, but because of their need and their greed, they encouraged her to steal. And eventually, she was taking so much money that it was going to start showing. So she began to collude with other members of the business. And they came up with a scheme with a third-party vendor to this company, in which that vendor would inflate invoices, and then they would go at the end of every day and they would share the money and all whatnot. But eventually she was caught. She was found out. And not only was she fired, she was arrested. And she was convicted. People often think in Nigeria that those things don't happen, but they do. Just a lot of employers sometimes choose not to press charges. But there are many companies that do, and there are lots of people who are in financial straits. They're in jail because of their actions. What's really sad about her story is that her family couldn't even raise the money for a lawyer. So it didn't really take very long for her to be convicted. Where am I going with this? If you're a financial superhero and the strain is getting too much, these 5 points apply to you. You know what I'm going to say? Retire. Step back. Yeah, your damsels will be upset. But guess what? Once they realize that you're retired and you mean business, they'll move on to the next financial superhero, or they'll stand on their 2 feet. Either which way, they'll be fine. So, as always, I'd like to encourage you to remain humble and learn. Bye for now.